So I'd like to start with an acknowledgement to country, just to acknowledge the original custodians of the land, all our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, to give respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and may this program in some way lead towards custodianship for them in their endeavours. So normally what we do when we first start, we start with a little check-in. So we'll just move into a little check-in. So just have yourself comfortably seated in your chair. Just allow your shoulders to relax, your legs to relax, feet to relax. And if you wish, just take a little moment to let your eyes gently close down. And just allow yourself to let what we call our energy level, so what we call the prana, just let the prana, the energy in your body, just to relax a little bit and to settle down. Because we've all been busy doing something during the day, so let's just take a little moment to let that settle. Let ourselves just find a little bit of time to balance ourselves and to connect a little bit deeper with inside ourselves. And maybe just taking a little number of how you've been feeling today and what your day's been like. You know, if you've been having a really good day, you can put yourself up to 7+ out of 10. If you're not feeling so good, you can be, you know, down 2, 3s, whatever it is. So maybe just taking giving yourself a little number about what your day's been like, how you're feeling currently right now. And it's not to think about it with any sort of form of judgment or, you know, expectation, but just to be aware of how you feel, because it always changes. And, you know, hopefully when we go through these sessions and we do meditation and yoga, we always find that there's a possibility to change. And Elizabeth was just talking to Anne about that just a minute ago. So let's just take that observation, bring that sense of awareness into ourselves physically, mentally, and emotionally. And let's just give ourselves that little bit of a number there. And then when you're ready, we'll just gently open the eyes. And if you'd like to just come into the chat, and you can just put into the chat what your score might be currently. And we've got Anne's come in with a 6 to 7. So that's good to hear, Anne. I know that's definitely improvement from a couple of days ago where you were feeling not too well at that day. So it's good to see that that's improvements there. Susan has got a 6. So it's a pretty kind of okay-ish day, I would assume. So thank you for sharing that, Susan. And we'll just see if anyone else wants to share how they've been feeling today or feeling at this current moment. I'm probably on maybe a 6 to 7 today as well. So it's been a busy day, been a busy week. And we've got Srinivas there who's just said he's on a 5. So, okay, maybe been a bit more of a tough day. But let's hope that we can go through today's session. Oh, Morna's got a 6 to 7. Hello, Morna. Nice to see you back joining us again. And Morna's on a 6 to 7. So Morna's a regular meditator with us on Friday evenings online. So nice to see you come and join us for these sessions as well. So just to give a little bit of, for some of you who haven't joined in the earlier sessions, just to give a little bit of a snapshot on what we covered in the last 2 sessions. So our first session, we actually covered the Ashtanga yoga practices of Patanjali. And we also, we sort of covered a little bit about pratyahara especially, which was that inward turning of the senses. So moving away from the external senses where we're going out into the external world all the time and finding the avenues which Heartfulness Meditation really does to bring this pratyahara, this inward turning or disconnecting from the external senses and looking within, but especially going away from thinking and coming into feeling. And so we covered this sense of pratyahara as part of the Ashtanga yoga practices. And we went through where heartfulness really comes into more the upper end of the practices of Ashtanga, which is really to do with from pratyahara to dharana, dhyana, and into samadhi. And we have recorded all these sessions, so we can get the recordings out to you. And if you do wish to get a copy of these recordings, I'll give you some details on how you can connect with us later on. On session 2, we went into yoga psychology, and we really went into a little bit there about swadhyaya, which is the interoception and bringing that awareness of how we feel in the self-study. And we also brought in the practice of cleaning, and how the practice of cleaning can be very helpful as a form of what we call tapasya, and also a way of purifying our, as what Elizabeth had said during the session, purifying the colored lenses that we start to get through our daily living, either that be mentally or physically or psychologically, and how we can actually find the processes in heartfulness to help to bring back a sense of balance and purity back into our lives. And that was what we covered a little bit in the yoga psychology in session 2. And tonight we're going to go through what's known as yogic transmission. So I know that some of you are regular practitioners and you would have heard about yogic transmission as a practice that we work with in heartfulness meditation. But if you haven't heard of yogic transmission, it's really a form of meditation that was forgotten as an art and science for thousands of years. It was used in vogue many, many thousands of years ago. And it was really through the work of the grand teacher of heartfulness, known as Sri Ramchandra of Fadiga, or affectionately known as Lalaji, who brought back to humanity the long forgotten art and science of yogic transmission, which was a novel method of spiritual training, which completely relieved the individual person, the students, to have to put all the work into it. And it helped them to help in their awareness, their expansion of consciousness and their own development much, much quicker than if they didn't have the availability of yogic transmission through this practice of heartfulness that we offer. And it was also mentioned as a new darshana by a very famous yogi by the name of Dr. K.C. Radhachari. So we will be covering this yogic transmission this evening as part of our session number 3. But the first thing what we will like to do is we'd like to go through a little bit of practice and to experience yogic transmission through the meditation practice. So if we can all, again, just find ourselves comfortably seated and in a nice, comfortable position. Have your feet on the floor, legs relaxed, shoulders relaxed, arms relaxed. And once again, if you feel comfortable, just gently close your eyes down. Again, just allow yourself to settle into your chair, into the seat. Just bring your awareness into your breath just for a moment or two, and just notice that natural inhalation, natural exhalation as we gently breathe in and gently breathe out. And then just taking awareness down to your feet and feeling the feet connected to the floor and to the earth energy, and just allowing that earth energy to gently come into the soles of the feet, allowing the toes and the feet to relax, the ankles to relax. And just feeling that healing energy now gently move up into the calves and into your shin bones and up towards the knees, allowing the lower legs to relax. And then just allowing that healing energy now to gently move into the upper legs, into the thighs, into the hamstrings, to the thigh muscles, allowing the upper legs and the hips to relax. Relaxing the buttocks. And relaxing the tailbone and the lower back. And relax the abdomen. And as we allow the abdomen to relax, just allow the breath to naturally move into the abdominal space as we gently breathe in. You might notice that the navel will gently rise as we breathe in, and it will gently fall back towards the spine as we breathe out. So just finding that very natural, easy flow of the breath as we gently breathe in, gently breathe out into the abdomen. And just allowing that movement, that belly breath, as we call it, to start to allow us to relax and to switch over into what we call the parasympathetic nervous system mode, that's known as the rest and digest mode. So just allowing yourself to gently move into that space of resting and relaxing. And just listen and feel the flow of the breath as we gently breathe in and out. Maybe starting to allow a sense of contentment to come in to a sense of feeling, and moving away from the thinking mind and coming into a sense of feeling and feeling a bit of contentment within inside of you. And then relaxing the upper back, the upper spine, relaxing the chest, relaxing the heart and the lungs. And just feeling that healing energy now move into the neck and shoulders, allowing the neck and shoulders to become nice and soft. And then feeling that healing energy move down into the upper arms, elbows, forearms, wrists, and fingers. And if you're sensitive, you might even feel that healing energy, what we call the prana, the life force within the hands, within the fingers itself. And just noticing and feeling, and then gently allow that energy to gently move back up through the arms, back into the upper arms, back up into the neck and shoulders, and then relaxing the back of the head. Relaxing the top of the head, relaxing the forehead, eyes, and the temples. Allow just a moment here to really let the eyes soften and relax, because we do stress the eyes out a lot. So just allow a little moment here to let them soften. As we relax the eyes, relax the lids of the eyes, the eyelids, relax the skin around the face, relax the muscles of the face, the lips, tongue, and the jaw. Just bring the awareness back into your breath there again, and just notice how you start to feel. Just begin a little bit of awareness, noticing any little subtle changes, any variation of just moving into that relaxation and coming into that rest and digest mode. Just preparing ourselves for going into meditation. In Heartfulness, we meditate on the heart space. We've talked often about how important the heart is, not just as an organ, as a physical organ to keep us alive, but also as an energy space where we feel our connection to things such as compassion, kindness, and love. And so we're just going to take our awareness down into that heart space, just connecting it into it as a sense of light, or a source of light that's felt within the heart space. And as we feel that light gently emanating outwards, just feel a sense of an effortless focus gently moving its way down from your mind into that feeling of that heart space. Just connecting into that source of light. And we're going to start the meditation. So please start meditation. That we see the light or not doesn't matter so much, but it's more of that making that little suggestion that that presence is there. And just allowing yourself to be open-minded and open-hearted. So allow yourself to create this sense of awareness to see if you can really sense and feel the yogic transmission that will be given during this little practice this evening. You may not feel it directly, but you might feel the effect of the transmission as we go through the practice. And at the end of the practice, I'll also ask you to just note down whatever experience you might have during the little session we have tonight. So let's start. Please start. if at any time you might find yourself wandering away in your thoughts, just very lovingly, very kindly, you just remind yourself that we're just merely meditating on that source of light within the heart in an effortless, focused way. As we just come towards the end of our little meditation with yogic transmission, just continue to keep your eyes closed just for another minute or two. And once again, first of all, take a little note of what experience you may have had during the practice that we just had, the Heartfulness Meditation. Notice any particular feeling, experience that may have come up for you, whether that be something physically, something mentally or emotionally, or even spiritually during that session. And maybe you might even like to note it down after we finish here. You might like to just write it down. But just allowing that state of mind that we've just allowed to develop, just allow it to imbibe a little bit deeper within inside of you. Allow it to become part of every cell within your body. You know, we talk that every cell within ourselves has life force, has this sense of prana. So just allowing that life force to be absorbed into every part and every cell of your body. Just being like a big sponge and letting it being all absorbed so that we feel that sense of unity and oneness physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And then in your own time, when you feel ready, please feel free to open the eyes and bring ourselves back into it for our presentation. So welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that little practice there with the yogi transmission. And I'll just ask you if you'd like to share, especially if you're new to Heartfulness and haven't practiced with yogic transmission before or done Heartfulness meditation. But even if you have, if you'd like to share maybe something that you felt during that meditation, did you feel possibly something that might have been effect from the yogic transmission as we did the meditation? If you'd like to share that in the chat, you're most welcome to. We'll just give you another minute or two there if you wish to share. It might take a little bit of time to type in your responses. Okay, so Avinash has just said that he felt nice and relaxed. Lovely. Thank you, Avinash, for sharing that. So anyone else want to just share anything there? So Susan has said that she feels peaceful and calm. Lovely. Thank you, Susan, for sharing that. I might ask Morna. Morna, would you like to share something in the chat? Maybe they're all still in a deep state of tranquility and meditation. That means it's been a good job then. Anyway, I think we'll move on. So thank you for those who shared that. And I hope you enjoyed that experience. Param has just said that he felt very gentle and energy moving upwards from your left leg. Okay, nice. I mean, we can feel energy moving in many, many parts of the body. And if we become sensitive, we can feel energy within any part of the body. And, you know, Swami Vivekananda said that, really speaking, that when we master this feeling of prana and energy in the body, we can be aware of the energy in any part of the body and also control it as well. So thank you for everyone. And I'm going to pass our presentation now on to Dr. Elizabeth Denley. And I forgot to introduce you earlier, Elizabeth, didn't I? I did.
Okay.
So I forgot to introduce you. I'll introduce you now. So welcome to Dr. Elizabeth Denley, who is the editor-in-chief of Heartfulness magazine. She's also a life skills and certified heartfulness trainer. And she's had over 35 years or more of, practicing, teaching, educating in heartfulness and also other forms of yoga. So welcome to you, Elizabeth.
Thanks, John. It's lovely to be here again with you and everybody else. So hello, everyone, and hope you've all had an amazing Sunday, which I certainly have. It's just seems to get better and better as the day goes on.
Liz, just before you start, I don't know if it's just me, but my screen doesn't seem to be seeing all the text. And I'm not sure if that's the same with anyone else. I'm not sure why. Is anyone else having an issue that they're not seeing the full screen?
Yeah, we can see the full screen.
You can see this full screen. Okay, that's good. Then it's just my screen for some reason. I'm not sure why it's doing that. Okay, sorry, Liz. I just thought I'd just make sure that it was okay for everyone else.
Anyway, I'm going to read it. So it's and if you can understand all this, hats off to you. I'm going to totally bamboozle you today, I think. Okay, so John spoke about yogic transmission. What is it? So its other name, remember we spoke about prana, and John spoke about prana again today, but we spoke about it in the last two sessions. The energy that flows through us, pranamaya kosha is our energy body. We do pranayama, which is breathing practices to move the energy in our system. We're always talking about prana in yoga. And this technique of yogic transmission is also known as pranahuti, which means offering of prana, or pranasya prana also in the old yogic texts, in the old Vedic texts. So again, we're looking at prana, but this is a very subtle, very special sort of prana. Now, transmission, we all understand. When we speak, we're transmitting sound. A mother transmits love to her babies. We all understand what transmission is. And we actually all understand energy transmission. For example, what happens when you walk into a room where people have been fighting? What does it feel like in the room? In English, we say you can cut the air with a knife, right? Because it's palpable. You feel that charge of energy in the room. Whereas when you walk into somewhere that feels very calm and peaceful, you notice the difference. You feel happy. You want to be in that space. It's a very different feeling. So we're all actually very aware of transmission. And throughout human history, spiritual transmission has been there, but just not in the same level or the same form that Lalaji rediscovered. So when we talk about pranahuti, we're talking about transmission from the center, from that place we talked about that we go to in deep samadhi, where we're one with everything in the universe. We're one with universal consciousness, that definition of yoga that we had, that complete stillness, which allows yoga to happen. So when we receive a transmission from that state, it means we start to resonate with that state. So it's like a leg up. It means going up in the lift in an elevator 30 floors up instead of having to walk up the stairs. We're given a very big boost to get glimpses of that inner state of stillness that we're all hankering after in our yogic practices. So what happens is this energy, which is energyless energy, if that makes any sense. I'll explain a bit more in the next slide. So it makes the meditation very dynamic because it's like we're going on a fast train into the center. In the Star Wars movies, when they're flying and they go off in their spacecraft and they're going along and then suddenly they go into hyperspace and they go into a totally different dimension. For me, that really evokes this sense of transmission where you meditate and you're going deeper in your own steam, and then suddenly, boom, you're given this really amazing support to go to a deeper level, a deeper dimension than you would be able to on your own. So it's defined, transmission's defined as the utilization of divine energy, or that center energy, that source energy, for the transformation of human beings. So we're not speaking about our physical transformation, because our bodies can't change much. They can grow, they can get fatter or thinner, healthier or unhealthier, but we can't grow extra ears or limbs or whatever. We're limited by our genetic makeup to that extent. On the mental level, we can expand much more than physically. We can evolve, we can grow much more. But it's on the spiritual level, at the level of the causal body, the soul, what's called the Karan Sharir in yoga, that there's an infinite scope for growth. And this is where transmission works. It nourishes that particular body, the Karan Sharir, the causal body that's associated with the soul. Remember when John was talking about the koshas last time, and he spoke about the Anandamaya kosha, the innermost kosha of bliss that surrounds the soul. So this is where transmission is working, and it works from the inside out. So we're working from the center of our being, and then that filters out through our whole system all the way out to the physical body. So it's a hidden work in some respects. It's not something that you will see, but you will feel the effects of it. So if transmission can bring about infinite growth, it must have infinite capacities. But in the physical world, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Well, it is more now with quantum physics, but if you just look at physicality, even the sun, it can shine for billions of years, but eventually it will burn itself out. And if you look at Einstein's famous equation, E equals mc squared, energy is limited. It's defined by a combination of velocity of light and the mass, a particular measure of mass, a finiteness of mass. But in yoga and in this centralness, in this level of the soul, we're not bound by physical laws anymore. And so a trainer like John's just given us this meditation session, right? He can be seated, he might be in Finland and you might be in Swahili land, and he can give you a meditation session like that. And the minute he triggers the transmission, you will start to receive it without any time gap, not even a billionth of a second. And we all feel this when we meditate for, time. We know when a meditation starts, even if the person on the other end doesn't tell us. We know when it starts because we feel it. And after you start these practices, even if you think of transmission, instantly it starts to flow. So we're not dealing with the same laws of time and space that exist in the physical universe. So even light can't travel instantly. If it could, we would see Alpha Centauri in the present moment, but we don't. We see it light years afterwards, because even light has to travel through time and space. But if a distance can be traversed in zero time, it means, from Einstein's equation, that velocity is infinite. So imagine if you took Einstein's equation and you were to substitute the speed of light with an infinite speed or velocity. The minute you insert infinity into the equation, the energy, E, capital E, which equals mc squared, so velocity is infinite, the c squared is infinite, that means the energy is also infinite and its source is infinite. That's transmission, which is why it's very hard to describe in words, and why really the only thing to do is to experience it. When you experience it practically, you're not trying to understand it with your head, because it's like trying to understand. Imagine you've never tasted coffee before, and I try and explain to you what coffee's like. I can say all sorts of things. I can say it's aromatic. I can say it's bitter. I can say it has an amazing aroma, but you still won't know what I'm talking about until you try it. It's the same with this. So no matter what your yogic practice is, whether you meditate, whether you do prayers, whether you do mantra, whatever you do, if you add transmission to this practice, whether you have faith that it works or no faith that it works, whether you believe in this theory of the centeredness that yoga holds, you will still feel a quantum shift in your inner experience, because what's happening is it's helping you, it's helping the prana, the vibrations in your system to resonate with that stillness, with that infinite capacity that we have. And what that does is it expands our consciousness. And we are allowing our consciousness to move into realms or dimensions of our existence, which we wouldn't normally in everyday life. We're going into a depth of our being, which we spoke about on day one in Masterclass 1 as the state of samadhi, of going to oneness with that original state of being that is just pure existence, pure non-existence actually, but a pure state of being where nothing disturbs us, where we completely balanced, completely centered, and completely at one with everything. And of course, we dive into that in meditation. And then when we come out, we feel so refreshed. And we can go out into the day, we can do all sorts of activities, and then we can come back again. And as John taught us the cleaning last time, we can clean off all the impressions that have accumulated as a result of all that activity. And then the next morning when we meditate, we go into that centered state of being again, from which all our creativity comes, all our potential comes. And our consciousness just keeps expanding out and out and out. So in the beginning, when we do this, often with transmission, we go into very deep states. We'll have a meditation and we'll find our head down like this, and we've just gone out like in deep sleep. And why is that? There's a science behind it. It's because our brain waves slow down to the level of delta waves, which is what we experience in deep sleep. It happens in meditation. They go down to this level of just 0.3 to 4 hertz, which is so slow that there's almost no activity, almost no thought, just subsistence, breathing, blood flow, etc., all the things that we need to do to exist. And we go into that deep state like we would in deep sleep. What starts to happen as we meditate with transmission is that our consciousness expands through the chakras, and I'll explain that in a minute. And as it expands out further and further and further, we're able to be conscious and aware in more and more states that otherwise we would go into a deep state with. We normally feel that stillness in deep sleep every night without knowing it. But through meditation, we become aware of that state. And it's known as Sahaj Samadhi or natural Samadhi. And through practice, through meditation, what happens is we can be in that deep state and still be holding a conversation, still be going about our work day. So we're functional in the world. In fact, we're hyper-functional in the world because we're not caught up in all the heaviness that we talked about last time, all those mental modifications. There's clarity, there's stillness, there's awareness, there's a heightened level of superconsciousness. And yet we go about normal everyday life and we remain centered in that state of yoga in our being. So that's what we're doing here. That's what we're doing in our meditation. That's how the heartfulness practices work. So it's taking yoga the tradition of yoga to the completely practical level of how to make it work in everyday life. You don't have to run away to ice caves or jungles and meditate 16 hours a day. It's simply a matter of meditating in the morning, doing the cleaning in the evening, connecting at night before sleep so that you sleep in that deep state, and going about everyday life, and life simplifies. So what Ramchandra did, the second teacher, John spoke about Lalaji, the first one who rediscovered transmission. And his successor was also a Ramchandra, but Babuji. And he redefined the chakra system through, again, his own research, his own Anubhava individual experience. It's not new. Other people have described it, but not in such a scientific way. The great Indian sage Kabir also reached up to these levels, but he described it very poetically, and you can't really make too much sense of it because it's just the brightness of 10 suns, 100 suns, 1,000 suns, 10,000 suns, etc. Whereas Babaji describes the condition at each of these chakras. So he doesn't include in this diagram, the lower three chakras, Muladhara, Swadhisthana, and Nabi or Manipur. And there's a reason for that, but I won't go into it. He starts from the heart. And what he says is that in the heart, there are actually 5 constellations or chakras. One of them being what you would call the throat chakra in the traditional chakra system. So 1 is down on the left-hand side, lower left-hand side of the chest. 2 on the lower right side. 3 on the upper left. 4 on the upper right. And then 5, or the throat chakra, right here between the clavicles. And these are associated with the 5 elements, what are called the Panchabhutas in yoga. So we have earth at 1, ether or Atman at 2, fire at 3, water at 4, and air at 5. And we work through these from 1 through this movement through the chakras as they open up and consciousness expands into the new realm. So that by the time we've mastered this region of heart, basically we've learned to master the dualities of existence, the human emotions, to a point where we can have an integrated system that's not pulled in. We're not pulled by desires at point 1. We're not affected by restlessness at point 2, or anger at point 3, or fear at point 4, or confusion at point 5. Instead, we have what we call in Heartfulness the 5 C's, which is contentment at chakra 1, peace or calm at chakra 2, compassion at chakra 3, compassion, love, all the qualities associated with the fire element. At water, courage rather than fear. And at 5, the clarity of viveka, of a completely rounded understanding of emotional existence. So we're at peace with ourselves as a starting point. But then the journey moves on, and you can see up here to chakra 6 between the eyebrows, the Agni or Trikuti chakra, 7 just above it, 8, 9. And then we have at the top of the head, we have Sahasradhara Kamal, which is directly up from the top of the ears. But in front of it, we have chakra 10. Behind it, we have chakra 11. The back of the head here, where you'll see men in India wearing the little, hairpiece here on the Brahmarandra or chakra 12. And finally, chakra 13, right at the very back at the occipital prominence of the head. And this is really the journey that we go through in heartfulness. This is just a very, very brief summary because there's no time to talk about it. But it's through this expansion into every new chakra that consciousness expands and we go deeper and deeper into states of samadhi. And we achieve that ability to become one with universal consciousness, with the source of our existence, with the source of all existence that we know as samadhi. So this is, a brief overview. And transmission is the secret sauce, if you like. It's the ingredient that supports this journey, because otherwise it would be almost unimaginable that a human being could go through all this evolution in one lifetime. In fact, when you look at the old yogic literature, it took lifetimes after lifetimes after lifetimes for yogis to master these things. But in the modern era of yoga, it's possible within one life because of this transmission. Now, trainers in our system are given permission to be conduits for this. So when we do meditations, the trainer has the ability, they don't initiate it, but they're a conduit for this transmission. And when you meditate on your own, after sometimes from the first meditation, sometimes after many, you also develop the ability to receive the transmission directly. So it's quite a potent thing. It's a very, very revolutionary development in the history of yoga, that this is now available to everybody all over the world, free of charge, either online, virtually like this, or in person with a trainer. And that's what we do. And for me, that's why I love this practice so much, because it can take me to a capacity, a potential, which I don't think I would be able to do on my own. So thank you, everybody. That's all I want to say. Again, let's open the floor to questions or comments or sharings, and see where we go from here.
So thank you so much, Elizabeth. That was a wonderful explanation as always, and lovely to go through the chakras that we have through what we call our heart region, and also going through the elements that are connected to that, and the 5 C's, which are what we aim for to get that balance within inside. So if anyone has a question from Elizabeth's presentation this evening, or anything in regards to yogic transmission, please feel free to put something into the chat, and hopefully we'll be able to clarify that for you.
And don't worry if you feel completely overwhelmed. It's perfectly okay. It takes some time sometimes to even get your head around this. I think the experience is better than trying to understand to some extent.
It definitely is. And I'll just share with everyone, I remember my very first group meditation that I attended. I was in Mysore in India, in Canada. I just remember going into my first group meditation, just had my 3 introductory sessions that we have when we first start. And I went into a small room, probably like my room here behind me. And then there must have been about 20 so people sitting in the meditation. And I remember sitting down, and being a yogi, I thought I'll be able to sit cross-legged and be all right, but you didn't have much room to move your legs or anything. So anyway, I sat down and I started meditating. And I think after about 15 minutes, I started feeling a bit restless physically inside myself and thinking, oh, I don't have any cushion to sit on. My knees are getting a bit sore. My mind started wandering, and I was thinking, I hope this meditation is going to finish fairly soon. And I thought I really didn't sort of meditate at all during the whole session. And I went for a whole hour. And I just remember sort of, by the time I got to the end, I was just so glad that the meditation was over. It was like my liberation had come from being able to get up and get out of the seat. But the experience that I had, not during meditation, even though I didn't meditate, I wasn't very focused at all. I didn't really enjoy sitting there. But after the experience that I had, the effect of the transmission afterwards, as you said, Elizabeth, put me into a different kind of state. You were talking about that, when you see on TV show, you see Star Wars and they go into this hyperdrive and zoom, and they go elsewhere. And I just remember being in this different atmosphere completely. And loving this atmosphere that I was in. It was like, as you said, I went from ground floor and I went up to level 50. And I was now looking at the world from level 50, where I could see everything and perceive everything extremely well. And felt like, oh, this is just a beautiful view to have. And, and that was just an amazing experience to have from first group meditation, and the effect of the transmission that I'd had from that, even though I couldn't even sit down and be still for 5 minutes, yet it still had that effect on me.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's amazing. So iPhone, whoever iPhone is, thank you for your question. If trainers are the conduit, where, what, or who is transmission from? It's a very good question. So the ultimate source is the source of the universe, what we call the absolute in yoga, the ultimate, the divine essence, universal consciousness. But it does require a conduit, like a magnifying glass is required to condense light to one spot to create that intensity. And so that's why there's a teacher in this practice. The current teacher, who resides in India, his name is Kamlesh Patel. Many people call him Daji. And he, in our system, is the source from which that is received, and then through the network of trainers, there are about 15,000 of us around the world, is then transmitted out across to everybody. It's like a water pipes network from the dam coming through in main pipes to everybody's houses. It works like that. It's not necessary to know about him or understand him or what he does or whatever. It's only necessary to feel through your own experience what's happening. And as that develops, and as you start to experience the meditation with transmission, you become more interested in knowing about the tradition and the philosophy and the books and all those things. Yes, there are, Susan, yes, there are written resources. There are amazing books, especially by Babaji, the second teacher in the tradition. There's one called Towards Infinity, which is a description of the chakra system as he first described it in the 1940s. But then, as well as that, if you go to, I'm going to type in the chat the URL for Heartfulness magazine, and there are a series of articles called March to Freedom. I think it's 1 to 4. I'm pretty sure it's 1 to 4. And they describe this chakra system in a lot of detail too. It's easier to access if you can't get hold of Babaji's books. So yeah, that's and also if you contact a trainer, they can go into more detail about this with you. And what's even better than knowing about it is through meditation, you start to experience the states at all these different chakras. So you start to feel the heaviness lift from chakra 1 in the heart, which is where most of the impressions that we talked about last time sit, because this is where the landing place for our emotions, our energy vibrations sits in our heart, around the physical heart. It's not by chance that it's there around the physical heart. And this emanates out then into our whole system. So when our heart is purified, it affects the whole system through the blood as well, because everything is purified, everything is elevated, is lighter, is not carrying the heaviness of emotions that are otherwise landing in our system and staying stuck there. But those resources are all available. So again, you can, I'm just going to type John's email also into the chat. And if you want to, you can, I hope I get it spelling right. You can also contact him about any of this and he can share those resources with you. Yes, thank you, Anne. They're in the December edition of Heartfulness magazine from 2017.
So there was just another question there. I think it was from my phone again, and that it was just asking, is the transmission the same for everyone?
Okay, the transmission, think of it like the sun. So the sun shines on everybody, but some people are exposed to it. Some people are hidden away in their houses. Some people have their face to it. Other people have their back to it. I mean, we all experience it differently. And also because, we all have a different way of perceiving the world. Our minds are slightly different. And based on the qualities of these 5 chakras in the heart, we have a different balance, all of us, of earth, ether, fire, water, air, etc. Some people are more fiery. Some people are more earthy and sort of grounded. Other people are more airy or are more emotional and watery. We all have a different constitution that way. And you see that in the balance of the chakras. Everybody has their own signature, even once everything's been purified. And so the way we respond to things is different. So we can all be sitting in a meditation. And if you're a very intellectual, you think things through type person, you may feel it. You may feel the effects of transmission in terms of amazing thoughts, great insights, light bulb moments, etc. Somebody who's very watery may go into sort of deep feelings of connection and love and all that sort of thing. So we all are going to feel it differently, even though the transmission itself is the same for everybody, just like the sun's shining on everybody, but we all feel it differently. It's a very good question, though. And sometimes you won't feel it at all. And, somebody can ask you, how did you feel the effect of the transmission? And you're like, what on earth are they talking about? I mean, when I started this practice, there was a lady, I was in Switzerland, and there was a lady from Holland. We were all working our husbands were working at the UN, and we were all there together in Geneva. And this Dutch lady started the same day as me, from the same trainer, and we had completely different experiences. And for me, it was like, knock your socks off. I knew this was the practice for me. I felt so much in my heart. I was just like, whoa. And she just came out of it and she said, I didn't feel a thing. And yet we all watched her over the next few months, her life completely change. It took her a year before she felt anything in meditation. And to her credit, she sat every day, she did it, she came for group meditations. But we all noticed the changes in her. They were phenomenal. Her whole life transformed in front of us, and yet she didn't feel anything. So it's going to be different for everybody. And that's one of the beautiful things. It's not a clone thing. It doesn't mean everybody's the same in how they experience their inner life. We just did, we've just publishing at the moment an article with the Dalai Lama for the July edition of the magazine. And the interviewer asked him, so, tell us about yoga. And he said, look, it's going to be individual for you. People may tell you that meditation means you've got to stop all your thinking. He said, but no, I mean, you are who you are. If you have thoughts during meditation, that's you. The trick is to be authentic and follow the experience that you have. And it's the same with transmission. Whatever that is going to be unique to you. And it won't be the same for you, the same person in every meditation. It will vary from meditation to meditation, because that's the beauty of nature. It's never the same twice.
Elizabeth, can I just share something there?
Yeah.
I remember there was a question about, transmission and how it affects us as an ongoing source of nourishment spiritually for us. And I remember, Babaji, as we call him, affectionately known, the second Ramchandra, was known as Babaji. He said that, it's a bit like water. You give water to a seed, it sprouts. When the seed grows into a little plant, you give it water again. It's the same water, but now the water turns it into a little plant. And then when the plant goes into a big tree, it's still the same water that's still nourishing the tree. So even though the effect of the water is working on a different level, and it's brought this tree into such a big thing, the seed into a tree, it's still the same transmission that's affecting and nourishing the tree.
iPhone's asked another really good question. What about being able to directly receive it? How is that occurring? Look, it's there 24/7 everywhere. You know, this is the essence of the universe we're talking about, beyond the physical universe. It's the essence of existence. So it's there. What happens with meditation is we're practicing tapping into that and connecting with it. And as you get better at it, obviously, you get better at connecting yourself and tapping into it. The idea here is not to become dependent on the trainers or dependent on a teacher. The idea is, you know, as they keep saying, is to make masters or teachers of all of us, in the sense that we master our own capacity to connect with this state of yoga. So it's there all the time. We just learn how to connect with it better, that's all. Which is wonderful. It's very liberating to think that we all have that potential.
Yeah, and I know that, Michael, you made a comment there as well. So thank you for sharing that. I'll just go back to that there.
I agree with you, Michael. I think it's something humanity is destined to do. I honestly think it's what we're all here for. And this is the era when we're all waking up, in a sense. You know, yoga was for quite an elitist group in the past. Whereas you look at what's happening today, it's just going gangbusters everywhere. And this is free. This is like air or sunlight. You know, nobody can charge for this stuff, this transmission. And I agree with you. I think it's something humanity is destined to do. I think you've hit the nail on the head. Yes, you can transmit without the recipient being aware. It's just like, you know, say you fall in love with somebody, right? And you're not with them, but you're thinking of them. You know, you fall in love with somebody and you're lying awake at night thinking of them. Often they'll pick up on it. Or if, say, your mother's thinking of you and is about to phone you, what happens? You suddenly have a thought of your mother, right? And she phones you and you're like, oh, I was just thinking of you. It happens so often because we do it all the time with each other. We're all connected. And this is just like taking that level of connection to the next dimension, to something where it's completely universal. But what you've suggested, which is transmitting that energy positivity to others, we can all do that every day. That's something where we can make a huge difference. Yeah, exactly. What you've said in your work, in your consultations, sometimes you feel it, right? And when you do feel it, the work goes to a different level, doesn't it? Yeah.
So I think there's another little question there, Elizabeth. This energy, substance, essence is divine and pure.
Got it. Yeah, there's no materiality to it, to transmission. And you all know that. You all know the difference between really pure love and love that's complex or possessive or whatever. So just take that to the next level again and you're in the right direction. I think we've run out of time, John.
I think we have. I think we have gone out of time. We've got 10 minutes over. So it was good to see such a good interaction there with the crowd this evening, with our attendees. So thank you, everyone, for your inputs there and your feedback and your questions. It's been delightful to have you all join us. Thank you very much to Elizabeth for clarifying things in such a beautiful way and such a simple way that you just seem to be able to naturally answer questions. You really got a gift there. So thank you, everyone. Have a lovely evening and see you again soon, and have a lovely life.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.